There's no real heroic mythological characters in this one, but there are some real people. Click, click, clack, 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 clack. The steel wheels of our homemade skateboards clicked and clacked down the sidewalk. The steel wheels hit those expansion gaps in the sidewalk and made this noise that was deafening, because there were 6 of us in a tight formation heading down the hill. Why, there was Crow Daddy and Esau, no hair, and let's see, Cheyenne Bodie, and there was Shu, and there was me, JD. And we were heading down that hill on our little homemade skateboards. We'd kind of upgraded. We'd all been in 7th grade woodshop over at Dana Junior High School. And we'd learned how to use a few tools. And we'd abandoned the 2x4 with the nailed-on skates, the ones you stole from your little sister, the clamp-ons. Well, we got some 1x8. I don't think we stole it. We used to lift these fence boards out of people's yards. They were pretty good for cutting, and we cut it into a shape, and we could use our tools that we had, planes and such, and we made it into the shape of a surfboard. So instead of a 2x4, we had a little thing that looked like a surfboard, and then we'd screw our skates on them. They still didn't have any trucks. You people that know skateboards know what a truck is. It's that allows the thing, skateboard, to turn. Those old steel skates, they didn't turn at all. You just had to scrape around to turn. Well, they didn't have urethane wheels either. They had those steel wheels. But we did it. We had our boards. We did it because, like some people call it, sidewalk surfing. Because our real love was surfing. All of us had started surfing that year, in 1959. We were 13. And we were all crazy, absolutely nuts about surfing. That's all we wanted to do. But when there wasn't any waves, we'd ride the skateboards, trying to make a few turns. There was a little bit of speed that you could feel, the wind in your face. Well, it was a cheap stimulation, and it was kind of fun. Hanging out with your buddies, running down the street as fast as you could go, making a lot of noise. Well, we all hung out with, there was probably another 6 guys. We all hung out down a little pocket beach down at the foot of Hill Street here in Sunset Cliffs. Most people know it as No Surf. It was called No Surf. It has been called No Surf for 50 years that I know, because when the south swell comes in the summertime, it's much, much smaller than it is right here at Ocean Beach. But it was a little private beach. Not many people went there because it was really difficult in those days to get down the cliff. You had to carry your surfboard down the cliff, and you got to a point where you couldn't walk down anymore. You actually had to lower your 30-pound balsa board down the cliff, and then set it along the edge of the cliff, and then climb down. That kept a lot of people away. So we looked at it as ours. There were a few older guys that had been there for a number of years, but for us, it was our little corner of paradise, where we could surf, and we could hang out, and we didn't have any adult supervision. That was probably one of the better parts of the whole experience. So it was that this is the way we wanted to spend our summer. And because it was so flat, here we were, heading down that hill. At the bottom of it, there was a turn. As I said, those steel wheel skateboards were really hard to turn. One trick that we had developed was to crouch down, grab the outside rail of the skateboard, and kind of try to drag it around the corner. Well, if you hit a rock or a crack or the skateboard slipped out from underneath you, you didn't have that far to fall. So there was an advantage to that. We were just about ready to make that big turn, all 6 of us together, whooping and hollering and clicking and clacking down that hill, when around the corner came a cop car with his lights flashing. Pulled up right next to the curb, we all screeched to a stop. The officer got out. We recognized him. Officer T. He was the local OBB cop. He was a tough customer. It was reported that he wasn't afraid to use his fists or his club when messing with the tough guys. So he says, "Boys, sit down." We all sat down on the curb like a bunch of monkeys in the zoo. We just sat there and hung our head. "Boys, got a complaint. You're disturbing the peace and creating a public nuisance. I could run you into juvie right now." You know, juvie, juvenile hall. Greatest fear of a teenage boy, juvenile hall. Well, I just looked at him, said, and then we looked at each other and we go, "He's bluffing." We didn't say it, but we thought it. He's bluffing. He can't get all 6 of us in his squad car and say this. "All right, boys, you know, you should not be hanging out at that beach all the time. That's a bad influence. There's bad characters down there. I'll tell you, you ought to play organized baseball or join the Boy Scouts. Get some adult supervision." Well, all 6 of us had played Little League Baseball, and I was a patrol leader in the Boy Scouts. So we stood and saying, we didn't want to upset him any more than he already was. "All right, boys, I'll tell you what." And then Crow Daddy kind of decided to say something. He said, "Officer, you know, we'll promise not to skate here down this hill anymore." Officer T kind of looked at us, and I think he might have just been tired of harassing us, and he just said, "Well, as long as you boys, I don't want to hear any more complaints about you. Anything. And stay away from that beach." And he got in his car, and he drove off. Wow. We waited till he was out of sight before we got up. And then No Hair, he reached in his back pocket, he took out this bar of paraffin wax, that hard paraffin wax. There was no surf wax in those days. And he took that bar of paraffin wax and walked up the street to the old lady's house that we knew who had complained about us. And he took that paraffin wax and got down on the sidewalk and he started writing letters. B-I-T-C-H, about 2 feet high. Now there's something strange about wax, that hard paraffin wax. When you write it on the pavement like that, you really can't see it. But later on, when the sun shines down, it melts the wax, it goes porous into the pores of the concrete, and it sits there, and it doesn't come out. And it was there all summer long. We would sneak by. We never went as a group anymore. We didn't want to get in trouble with Officer T. But we would sneak by, going down to the little store, and there would be B-I-T-C-H. It was about as bad as we got, you know. Well, we grabbed up our skateboards and we kicked off down towards Sunset Cliffs Boulevard and off back down to No Surf to see if the mid-morning wind had picked up and maybe the rising tide had brought in a little wind swell and we could go surfing. Because that's what we really wanted to do. We just wanted to surf as much as we possibly could. And that's what we did during the summer of '59. You know, I'd like to thank my pals from that period of time. You know, they were a good influence and sometimes not such a good influence. But, well, Crow Daddy and Aesop, they're surfing up there in the great beyond. No Hair and Cheyenne, I lost track of them over the years. I hope that they found some cure for the depression that they suffered. Now Shu, he's got the sweetest deal of ever. He lives in the Philippines. He's got a beautiful wife, and there's a surf break right outside his house where no people are but him. And here I am, I'm your intrepid storyteller, JD, and I would like to thank you for being here tonight. That we have out in front of us this wonderful ocean. It sustains us, so let's enjoy it, let's respect her, and let's protect her. Thank you very much.